All right, welcome to the build. So it's moving quickly.
Their product velocity is intense. We're both pretty involved in the LangChain community.
This is going to be an industry, like the whole thing is going to explode.
The hype cycle, it's like just because you hear everybody start talking about these things doesn't necessarily mean it's the right.
Need to go back, find out more because it's really interesting.
We're both obsessed with AI and their entire stack is just pivoted to agents.
The next question that usually comes after that is like, well, I'm fine-tuning an open model.
That's the biggest thing with the latest spec.
It's an exploding distribution vector.
I'm really excited. I think everybody is. I'm not the only one.
The build.
I'll just kick it off and then I'll yeah, man, it's good to be back. Maybe this is season 2. I don't know. Season 2.
I think we can make it whatever we want. Season 2.
Whatever it can be, whatever we want it to be, man. Fuck up my. There we go. How you been, buddy?
Good. Very good. Good progress on some projects and things I'm hoping to be able to talk more about soon. So I'm feeling great.
You gotta launch this shit, man. Well, you've been talking to me about this for ages. Well, remember, launch early.
I know, can't come soon enough, but yeah, maybe here in the next week or two. But Tom, I'm excited to talk to you again. You've coming back from all these amazing experiences, ready to hear about all the new knowledge, the new wisdom.
New knowledge and wisdom. Yeah, so I had a couple of weeks off. I went away. It's at a music festival. That was pretty incredible. There was nothing to do with AI going on there, which was kind of nice. And I had like a solid 2-week hiatus from anything to any AI news, all of it, like none of it. And then I was like, I came back and basically it's a good lesson. I think it's like AGI hadn't emerged. The open source models had just gotten slightly better. And like 100 new agent frameworks have been launched. It was like, oh, it's all the same. So it's not a problem. So it's a good reminder, like, you know, go out and build.
If you're,
don't pay attention to the news, just go out and build something. But then the next thing I did, which was very inspiring, was I've spent the first half of this week at the All-In Summit up in LA. And that was amazing. Unexpectedly amazing. I really love the podcast and what those guys do. They annoy me sometimes, which I think is probably positive. And yeah, just the crowd, the community, the speakers, it was just amazing. So I can give you a
that's amazing, man. I can't imagine. And if you're open to talk about it, surely there's some tidbits there. I will say you picked to go off the grid and not be using AI tools. If you're still primarily using Claude Code, you picked the best week or the best couple of weeks. I don't know if you saw the news, but it's been pretty rough.
No, I haven't. So let's dive into that. So I've got a few things I want to talk through in terms of updates and stuff. And then I want to take you through some of the takeaways from the All-In pod. And yeah, just hear about what you've been up to. And we can just generally review it. Probably do a short one today, I assume, given that we are just getting back into it. You want to tell me what's been going on with Claude? What's been happening with you?
Yeah, well, I guess it was probably about 2 weeks ago. I started noticing myself, Claude, where I'm like, man, it's not just a little bit off. It was like completely rewriting code, things I didn't ask for, like way off the rails. And then I started diving in, trying to find feedback on X or just the internet in general. And I didn't see much until, I don't know, the last week or so. I've seen a little bit of, I don't know, rumors or people speculating that Anthropic has been downgrading the quality of the model. So I'm finally starting to see other people who are saying the same things, but there's nothing.
Downgrading the what? The quality.
Downgrading the quality of the responses. So I don't know if people think that they're limiting tokens or what, but something happened, and I definitely noticed. It was probably a good week I didn't use Claude Code at all.
Wow. What did you switch to? Is this your offline open source model kind of?
Yeah, combination of like open code, still using Klein every once in a while. Primarily, I'll use Klein with Open Router. And then Grok released a CLI tool. It's meant as like a template that you can build on. So I've been experimenting with that and wired up Olama Turbo. If you recall, they released their cloud-based service, which I know is kind of counterintuitive to the point of Olama, but I think so far it's awesome. I don't hit rate limits or anything like that. You can use GPT, OSS, and then they added DeepSeek 3.1 to Olama Turbo. So I've been actually doing coding with that a little bit, and it works pretty well.
Wow. So how widespread was this like core issue? Like, is this just like something that was on X and people were bitching, or is it actually?
See, I haven't seen anything official unless there was something new today. It's basically a bunch of speculation and accusations where normally I'm like, hey guys, but no, I noticed 150% something changed.
They've been under pressure, right? But also they just did a massive capital raise.
Right.
I'd be interested to see how much of that was like free tier downgrade. And like, so do you pay for the Max subscription?
I have Max.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's bad. That's really bad. Because as soon as you lose developers, you're fucked. Like,
yeah.
Once developers have a bad experience, I've found that at least when you're trying to sell to them or you're trying to market products to them, it seems like you really only get, like, they're very uncompromising and they're not particularly forgiving as a consumer group. Like, compared to, say, my experience of selling and building products for like salespeople or marketing people, they're a lot more forgiving, in my opinion.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, you put in hard work or whatever hard work when it comes to AI, and it's super frustrating, taking you in the wrong direction, and sometimes you might not even realize it right away. So I get it, and I try to be forgiving, but I guess maybe on a positive note, it's caused me to explore some of these other tools a little bit more.
Well, that's cool. So you're actually able, and that's the real problem for Claude and Anthropic would be if this is driving developers to experiment with other workflows that are, say, local blend, like a hybrid blend of local open source plus other things, and they actually make it work, then they're going to churn forever. That's crazy. All right.
Yeah.
You know what I saw actually when I was at the All In Summit? I was like looking over people's shoulders. I don't know if you do this when I look over people's shoulders when I'm at conferences to see like what software they're using.
Yeah.
Just to try and like get a sense of like what are the apps that they're using. And I saw a couple of people, but I was up close with one guy. He was using Ghosty. It's kind of like Wave, but it's like a terminal. It's a terminal kind of agentic interface tool. And it was the first time I'd really just for a solid 10 or 15 minutes watched like a hyper agentic developer working just randomly. Like he was listening to some talk and then he had about 8 or 9 terminal windows with different agents all running at the same time, doing rapid like iterations through each one. And it's like, wow, I feel like such a noob. I was watching and it was like, you're really pushing the envelope on this. And the number of Claude Code implement agents running simultaneously, not just sub agents like we've covered, but just like individual agents that he was just chatting with and doing different things.
Sure. Yeah, and I haven't checked out Ghosty yet, but is it more like a orchestration?
Yeah, it's like terminal orchestration.
Yeah,
basically,
there's some
so you can run
cool
multiple
ones
terminal
coming
agents.
out. Yeah, there's some cool ones coming out, and I think that's, for me, the takeaway is not necessarily going away from Claude Code, but I've started, you can run Claude Code as a MCP server. So what I've ended up primarily using the last couple of weeks is more like an open code or my own version of the Grok CLI. And I'll use like Claude Code, open code, tools I've built as like MCP. So you have more, the CLI at the top layer that I'm interacting with is more like the orchestration console. where you're still using Claude Code or other agents, but all in combination. And that next step is like the visual layout and organization of all your different workflows and things like that. So there's some cool things coming out in that area.
Yeah, someone who's never cracked that product interface, because like I was looking at Ghosting and it looked cool, but it like as a concept, but it's really just of the time. Like those things won't exist in 6 months, I don't think, because like as we know, and you covered it in your demo of Claude Code sub agents, like there are the ability for them to spin up their own terminals and work within certain components, plus then route to sub agents, right? Really, those things are sort of like trying to build an interface for the human to see the plethora of agent implementations and executions going on at once. And no one's really cracked the way for one developer to orchestrate and manage that in a really effective way.
Right.
But number two, no one's also cracked the multi-agent Git flow reconciliation kind of challenge. Once it gets to a bit of scale, they start like just attacking each other, overriding each other, not doing merge conflicts properly, like all of it. So that's a real like, if someone could crack that now, and they could potentially take on someone like Cursor, you know, which would be quite positive.
Yeah.
Speaking of Grok, did you see they put out Compound out of beta? I was playing with that and I thought I might show it to you because it looks pretty cool. Unless, did you want to go anywhere else?
No, I would like to learn more about it because I've experimented with the beta it's been out for quite a while, but I didn't see production version or what they changed.
Yeah, just let me show you this. So this is it. You can see it in their documentation. It basically is their version of like Perplexity, or like operator. It's not quite agentic like, you know, OpenAI's agent, but it's getting there. But it's built on Grok, so it's super fast, right? This is the documentation, but basically it's like here. It's just a bunch of tools that are built in, and it's quite cheap for what it does. And you can it's built. Yeah, it uses GPT open source and Llama 4 Scout, although I don't know why they would be using that. And then this is the sort of use cases area where you can see. So basically it's like, it's web search, kind of like a Perplexity killer or a Perplexity, open source Perplexity embeddable kind of functionality you could just like pull out and then just embed it in an app you're building, right? That's number one. But number two, they've partnered up with E2B and they've got this code execution environment as well. So they've got a bunch of different tools in there, sort of like out of the box tools that you can see with like the leaders, so OpenAI and Anthropic, but built on Grok, so it's blazingly fast.
I think it's geared towards tool use and agents, right? So,
but you can play with it on the website, which is kind of cool, I thought. Here we go. Yeah, try Compound. This is annoying. I just want to show you the simple
I don't remember the cost. It was supposed to be a cost-effective. It's like a model router, essentially, right?
They're sort of pitching it as like an agentic, general purpose agentic plug and play system via an API. So you've got like Compound and Compound Mini from Grok, and they have like the model choice plus the tools. So kind of like Manus or basic Gemini or OpenAI kind of agentic toolkit. Not what we would call agentic, where like you go and building custom solutions with say LangChain. Kind of like consumer level. So if you want to have like a consumer level embeddable kind of agentic experience in your app, you could just poll this Compound, like use this Compound solution. And then basically it's really, really fast, gets the benefit of Grok.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is an example.
Definitely fast.
So yeah, I thought it was cool.
Well, I'll have to do some side-by-sides. I mean, I've been experimenting with it for a while, but not enough tests to really speak on the performance.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Another thing I saw was ByteDance. All right, check it out on artificial analysis. So while I was away, all of the image models and stuff started exploding with Nano Banana. Have you played with that? It's like breaking the
Right.
internet.
Not to get us sidetracked here, but I was hoping you could explain what's the big deal about Nano Banana. How's it different than VO3? And
Well, let's just go to the text to image leaderboard, image arena with these guys so we can talk it through. So, text to image leaderboard. It seems like the Nano Banana, the breakthrough was basically better, more fine-grained control over image edits. That was the key innovation, right? Or the key acceleration. And these guys from ByteDance Seed Dream apparently has a set of those functionalities that's just came out, and it's now top of this leaderboard. So once again, like, I'm always amazed by these Chinese models and these smaller research, like less resourced research teams, even though, ByteDance is a bloody massive company, but they're not Google, right? And they're still able to bring out these specialist image and video models that still beat these guys. They can't do language in this context as well. Probably, there's a language and cultural context there as well as the chips, but they can fucking nail these creative ones. Like, they just keep getting ahead of the curve. Despite the fact that Google, these, as we covered in the model card for VO3, like, they train on their TPUs. Like, they've got like a full end-to-end vertical stack for this stuff. So the fact that these guys are still up there is pretty amazing. So it's kind of like a Nano Banana, but cheaper. Apparently.
right. And then
image editing. Here we go. Yeah,
I think
top of the
Quinn,
image editing one as well.
didn't Quinn have, Quinn Image Edit?
Yeah.
I think that was kind of a big deal when it released.
These guys, like
last
Labs,
month.
like Flux Context
Last
is
month.
like one of the better ones. Like, they've all got their different like performance benefits. I think the main thing which we can like convert over into if you want to keep going on these things around Google is the Google Genie model. Genie 3. So this came out almost a month ago, just over a month ago now. But at the All-In conference, Demis Hassabis talked through this in pretty significant detail. And this thing is just mind-blowing in terms of its capabilities. And it's not something that I expected them to release, to be honest. And they have he had a very specific kind of research thesis around why this was significant around the learnt capacity of a model to replicate physics. Not in a game engine kind of scenario, but actually just, it understands physics of the world and can render down an entire universe spatially on demand, right? And it opens up all of that vision that Jensen has around, like, in the future, every pixel will be generated. It won't be rendered. This was significant, I thought, and it's sort of like, I think the implications of what this actually means for not only content, but like robotics, world simulation, as well as entertainment and that sort of stuff will be significant. Like, when we covered the creative tools,
Absolutely.
like about 3 months ago, we created the creative tools, and I said, like, the next step will be the ability to really step into the 3D environment to render down the video and the content you actually want if you're building, say, an ad or whatever it was. Now, this basically gives you that because you can render down the 3D environment. And then I could say, all right, go over here, reshoot, cut, say, a frame for a video from this angle, because I can render the entire world mesh, the world down before I then export it out to, say, a 2D video. But more importantly, over the top of that, it actually opens up all sorts of new ideas around, like, well, what is content? Like, what could content be? What could media be? What could a movie be? Like, it's like completely new in that everything could be unique. Everything could be auto-generated for you or for a group of people, or you could have split offs. Like, you could do multiplayer with this. There's all sorts of crazy things you can think about that will come off the back of an engine like this.
Yeah, I think didn't Netflix just sign some deal about like generative content or something? Kind of, I guess when I read it, I was thinking about that hyper personalization of content. I don't know that that's exactly what it is, but did you? And sorry, you were. I know you were off the grid, but did you see that thing about Netflix?
No, the only thing I've seen recently of them is they've started to acknowledge that they are using AI generated content in production of different, different shows. Finally, I think they were all pretty reticent to do that. It was pretty sensitive given the writer strikes and a bunch of other stuff. I
Yeah,
actually met at the All In conference. I met a guy, a super interesting guy, who he pivoted from being an economist at I think it was the Federal Reserve, to being a screenwriter, and now he's a screenwriter for like, not Netflix, but the equivalent, like working on shows like that. And he's the first person I've actually met where I've been able to directly ask him, what do you think the impact of AI tools is going to be on your industry? And he basically said, like, it's just going to be one person and the tools soon, pretty soon, was his opinion. He's like, what we used to work on a show might have been 10 screenwriters, is now 5. That was pretty rapid change. It's just basically all going to potentially one person. And in his opinion, it was just going to go all AI. And I was like, I was trying to push back a bit on that. I was like, well, isn't the human element meaningful? Isn't there a meaningful component of the human exchange where like a person really wants to know that art or creative output comes from another human? And is there something that's inherent to that will never go away? And that's my opinion, but he was like, I don't think so, which I thought was pretty interesting. But then he did acknowledge that a lot of that stuff that he was talking about is sort of like just TV. It's not like he's writing Anna Karenina or War and Peace or whatever.
sure.
It's like it's TV stuff. So there might be a scale, right? It's like you want to
So
listen to
you're
Suno AI, just for fun, but I haven't yet like found a song that I love and I listen to again, right?
Yeah, so you're kind of explaining the difference between like content and art, and you're questioning the art piece. You know what? I actually had an experience this week that I've kind of been on that side of there's so much human element that makes art and the content that we appreciate and like, but Suno, the new one, 4.5, I think. Um, So I haven't played music lately, but in my free time, I enjoy recording music. That's kind of what got me into technology. I uploaded some of my like songs to Suno with the 4.5 version, and they have a cover feature, and it basically just instead of like regenerating a completely new song with your like general vibes, it does a cover of it. And listening to those, I was like, it totally captured some of the subtle things that like maybe me as the person who made it, like only I would notice. Um, and I don't know, like it's changed I'm thinking about it still, but I'm like, there's human element or what I perceive as human element there. Yeah, already, like, I don't know. It's just, I guess my point is I've been kind of on that side of you can't replace, and now I'm questioning.
Well, I guess there's two parts to the question, right? Like the first one is like, will AI tools ever, like, will they be better at creative works than humans? And I think it's pretty clearly that we're already at that point or exceeded that, right? For many kind of different creative pursuits, at least for the majority of people. Like an AI can write probably a better poem than most people. Doesn't necessarily mean we all love poetry all of a sudden, but like that is true. The next part that I was thinking about, which was more the genesis, my inquiry for that guy, is more like, and this comes through in like communications theory and like marketing, advertising, those sorts of things. Is like people really want to belong, and they also really want to connect with other people, right? And so there's always this idea of like, a one-to-many kind of storytelling experience is important, not because the creative work is exceptional, but because it says something about you and it gives you the sense of belonging to other people, whether it's a subculture or a broader culture or whatever it is. So in advertising, obviously it's a classic thing where you're like, have you seen that ad, whatever it is. But in like art or in film or in music, whatever, there's something about the belonging to other people that matters. And I think that's kind of encoded in like the human element as well, which is more of an audience thing. It's not necessarily about the quality of the music or the quality of the art or whatever. It's actually like an audience experience. And, there are examples of this in, say, social media where there are completely fake influencers and people seem to be happy to follow them, right? So it's not like it's completely 100% true. I'm just thinking like on the curve of creative kind of interaction that people have, where it's like, art means something to them. I kind of feel like the human part will always be there, our desire to have that come from another person, but I could be wrong.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like they say, it's beauty's in the eyes of the beholder, and not everybody is
And the
a
quality of the
fan of
model.
art. Not everyone appreciates that element, though. And I think for like you and I, yeah, duh. But
Is that because we're posh fuckers?
yeah, I mean,
Probably.
there certainly are people who it could make no difference, but yeah, I agree with you.
So while we're
Very
on the music
interesting.
thing, one thing we didn't cover, which I wouldn't mind chatting to you or briefly about now we're on this, is actually 11 Labs got into the music game as well. Did you see this? This was a couple of weeks ago. But the key difference was you can use this in certain commercial contexts. So the generation they give you, like their license is a bit more permissive in terms of like what you can use it for compared to say Suno and some other things. Like, and I don't know whether they've got like contracts with labels or whatever it is, how they manage to do this, but they basically say you can use this. And one of the things that came out from my time off is like I really want to get back into producing some music, but in like an AI kind of forward way. So expect a lot more demos over the coming weeks. But I was actually thinking, well, this would be really cool to dive into and say, right, well, now I want to, because you and I both came from like that, have done a lot of electronic music kind of stuff as well as other genres. It's like, what's the experience of being a music producer now if you really push the envelope on these AI tools? Like what can you actually achieve from like an MCP connector into your audio production workstation to custom generated kind of refined voices and singers that you just develop and curate that become your sound. Yeah, the full gamut. So yeah, I'm keen to dive into this stuff, and the fact that these guys are enabling like commercial use is pretty great. Like
I haven't tried the 11 Labs updates, but the big thing there was basically adding or like generating acapellas. Like if you have an instrumental, it will generate the melody and stuff like that, right?
I haven't. I'm not exactly sure. I know you can do that in Suno, and the other one which I've used for a while, where it's just you can just say, generate me a acapella only in this style. I'm assuming these guys can do it too because they're so good at voice. I think they'd probably be surprised if they didn't. And then this is like the experience of the product here. Here's this house beat.
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah, okay, right. And then their section, oh, that's cool. So they have like a little text-based section development kind of UI component to it. Nice. Yeah, so I'm interested to play with that.
yeah, and I think Timberland. I saw a bunch of stuff about Timberland. I think he started a company around AI music. At least from what I saw, he was catching a bunch of bunch of heat from artists. But
I wonder why. I can talk through a bit more of the Ball In conference if you like. If you're interested.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so it was not exactly what I'd expect. I've never been before. Listen to their podcast a lot, but I'll just turn this off while I talk through this. So first up, like it was just very inspiring in terms of some of the people that I spoke to and some of the people that I met as well. It's really great to meet entrepreneurs who are from all over the place. Like I met some really interesting, really niche kind of entrepreneurs in both tech, but also the regular economy from everywhere. Like this great legend, Omar, met him. He's a Jordanian Palestinian dude who lives in Doha, runs a pretty successful, pretty large SaaS business. Like just really interesting and cool people. So that was really good because like you get a sense of like a global kind of entrepreneurship community. And the speakers
Well, and
they had
it's
were pretty sick. Sorry, mate, what were you going to say?
no, I was just going to say it's probably cool to be around a group of people who are like AI conscious, at least have some exposure, some knowledge of it, but it's not like a bunch of AI nerds specifically, right?
That's what I actually
And,
really liked. And I met quite a few, like one guy I'm thinking of in particular, he used to work for Coinbase. He was like an expert in cybersecurity, but now he just has like a building manufacturing, like he created like his own little kind of widget in the building space and sells it, and that's his business. And it was it was very enjoyable because it wasn't like, a tech conference where you're just like, all right, which JavaScript framework are you using today? Like that
right.
sort of shit. It was more real, I guess. So that was really great. And then some of the speakers that were very memorable for me is like Demis Hassabis, like from like the CEO of Google DeepMind. Like he said this in the interview, you can check it out on YouTube, but like DeepMind is powering every single part of the Google stack now. So every single product is touched by them. He has about 5,000 people in his org that he manages, and it's sort of like split between DeepMind and then this uh, hard sciences research area where AlphaGo has sort of been like spun out into. And he was just talking about like the pushing the frontier, and he's not as bullish on this AGI kind of time frame. So he reckons like 5 to 10 years is sort of like what he thinks is like the reasonable amount of time to kind of benchmark on. But he does think that we're going into like this next gen, like this new age of scientific discovery is sort of what he's most excited about, which I thought was kind of cool. And also just like a fucking amazing human. Like he won the Nobel Prize, right? With I think some other researchers, and he just talked about how he got to thumb through the book, and like Marie Curie and like Albert Einstein's signatures are in there, and he's like, oh man, like just incredible, like an incredible scientist, like proper nerd, like grow up playing video games and
Yeah.
stuff. Like, yeah, I love the guy. That was amazing. Another thing I thought was interesting is like they're kind of like trying to challenge the American mindset around like being exceptional, and building and creating great things. And Alex Karp was the CEO of Palantir. He was there, and he's always entertaining, and he doesn't hold back. That was great, but he said some really cool stuff. It's sort of like, I'm not American, but I love America. Like I really feel at home here. And he was sort of saying like, don't be afraid of who you are and what makes this an exceptional place, which I found quite inspiring. It was sort of like, America is really great at enabling individual creativity to win. That's sort of how he kind of framed it. And I found that really inspiring. And he also just said like, no one's going to give you what you want. Like you got to be 10x better. Otherwise someone else is going to take you out. So he's like a proper, he's not like a built kind of like, rah CEO. You see the guys that are obviously working out all the time. He's pretty wiry kind of guy, but he's obviously got some really kind of interesting parts to him. He's like a Tai Chi kind of, not martial artist, I guess. And like, he's got a few interesting perspectives on different things.
He's
So
an interesting guy, and I started going down a rabbit hole on him within the last couple of weeks because of course, you see videos and interviews of him, but I never really gotten like paid as much attention. And he's a really interesting guy. But he even says he's like Palantir, we're a colony of artists, or so
yeah, individual artistry. And I think like once you do get to like a level of exceptional performance in any field, like it is like art, like you are like an artist.
yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, when he says like don't be afraid to be you, I mean, what does that mean? What do you take from that?
Me? Don't be afraid to be you.
Yeah.
I think it's more like don't be afraid to be ambitious. Like I think he's sort of like saying like if you really want what you do to matter, like you've got to be ambitious, and like there's nothing wrong with that. I think many parts of American society, not necessarily the, maybe the people we speak to or that community, kind of like just in general, maybe are losing a bit of that spark.
Hmm.
So I found that quite inspiring, kind of a good message. The other really cool speaker was Eric Schmidt, former Google CEO, who's now gone into space and sort of defense. He was talking about some pretty wild stuff in like drone warfare and stuff. I was like, whoa, this is pretty
Oh,
scary
really?
in terms of like drone swarms and like, coordinated swarms of autonomous kind of defense entities that are then centrally controlled and battle against an adversarial forces AI engine, and how they game, like how game theory not game theory, like strategic war planning changes in the context of that technological shift, which was interesting and also terrifying. Elon Musk dropped in for a bit. That was cool. He just talked about Optimus and stuff, which was rad. Which was really cool. But, it's not stuff that we hadn't, not really
Did they
stuff that
bring
we didn't.
some?
No, but not really. He just dialed in, but not really stuff that we hadn't heard from him before. The other thing I would mention is interesting is Humane AI. Have you heard of Humane AI?
I don't think so.
I think they have a tie-up with Grok because Chamath Palihapitiya was talking to him about some deal that they had. But basically, they're like an inference and kind of training kind of infrastructure provider. But then they also have, I think, a custom trained model. But they're based out of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. I think they're funded by, or they may have gotten funding from the Saudi Arabian government. But he was very interesting about how he talked about training a custom model, which I spoke about on the previous show, of having like a cultural nuance and a cultural reference around, say, training Arabic first, and how that is a very significant kind of experience shift and the use case shift and the application shift when you're talking about like using AI models in a culturally different place based on language, which makes perfect sense because it's a large language model. The language is English. That's going to have an embedded kind of cognitive architecture based on the nature of English compared to, say, Chinese or Arabic. I thought that was pretty fascinating. And then he also talked about how just like the tech space in the Middle East is obviously changing quite a lot, and he was trying to encourage people to think about it in a bit more positive light, which was interesting. Yeah. So overall, it was great. It was incredible. Great experience. Loved it. Met some wonderful people. You should come next year.
Yeah,
Or
I know.
will it be the
I was
Build
gonna say, I wish
AI
it could.
conference?
Well, it sounds. I think you probably had a lot more there than what you could even speak on here, because I know how those, especially a conference like that, the type of people there be awesome. Is this, you were talking about Humane AI? So is this humane-ai.ai? Is this the right company?
Yeah. Humane. Yeah. Humane AI. So HUMAIN.ai is it. They have this like AI operating system that they're kind of going to release towards the end of the year, apparently. That's like a ERP kind of business operating engine that they've kind of built internally. So it's kind of a blend of like infrastructure plus software plus partnerships. They work with all these guys. Like, yeah, it's sort of like a Saudi Arabia sort of Middle Eastern AI play. So yeah, really cool. Really cool to learn about it. What else do I have for you? Oh, did you see? Sorry, going back onto Anthropic, did you see that they launched their code interpreter?
I did. I haven't done too much with it, but it's like it's a cloud based, right? It can create files like
Apparently they can create
and edit files.
PowerPoints. The only thing that I'm excited about, because it's like basically a code execution environment, the only thing I'm excited about is apparently it's good at building PowerPoint. And like any AI tool that finally means I never have to create any PowerPoint anymore is like, I would like I'll throw anything I can at getting that. And I don't mean like, and every time you see it on X, they're like, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried my startup, my thing? And they're all shit. None of them do exactly what I want. I always have to like go in and change fonts and stuff. I'm like, I do not fucking want to do this anymore with my life. And I'm sure I'm not the only
Yeah.
one.
I've started creating slide decks as Node or JavaScript web applications. So
Next, you're going to be
hopefully
saying,
this
I'm
actually
creating
works. But
presentations as
I
MCP
think,
servers.
yeah, OpenAI made the same claim, I think, and I still don't use it, or I didn't think it was very effective. So hopefully this actually works. We'll see.
Yeah. Actually, I've got one other thing to get your opinion on, and then I'll probably stop talking. But I really want to try out that before you let that PowerPoint thing. And if it is, I'm just going to like, basically, I don't know, send them a bowl of Don or something like that as a thank you, because it'll change my life. Have you seen this chart? This is doing around on X a bit this week from Swix, the founder of Small AI, who just joined. He was just joined Cognition. Actually, he rolled his fund over into Cognition, which is pretty cool. But he posted this out, and it's sort of a way to think about like scenarios. So this is scenarios around what's happening with AI models. He posted it basically as like saying, this is just literally what he was saying. It's like most big lab people believe this, which like the frontier model intelligence levels will keep going up. Local models will basically always stay beneath the threshold of user expectations for good enough intelligence. That's their bet. Like basically scenario 2 is that there's always this distance between open and closed frontier models, but like our expectations will always rise somewhere in between. So there'll never be a distinction. So there will always be a play for both. Whereas in this scenario, frontier models will start to reach escape velocity and just never, and the open models will just never catch up. Then there's this scenario, which is like frontier models, basically like the acceptable intelligence discount just gets met by most users for AI products in the world, which means the collective bar is reached, which is basically what you're saying is happening to you now that Claude is sort of fucking up a little bit. And you're like, oh yeah, I can get that's basically this scenario 3 playing out in practice. And then like the good enough bar is basically we just reach a level of intelligence which is good enough for most human activity. And then everything gets better, but most of our use is sort of just sitting here, which is kind of like electricity, right? Like the main utility of electricity was just like lights. It's been that the whole time. We've got other things, those things come along, but nothing else has really transformed us more than, say, lights from that revolution. Lights and maybe heating. Maybe heating could be one of those, or refrigeration. Those are the scenarios, and sort of like who's betting on which scenario kind of is like informs like the investment thesis of a bunch of different companies. I thought it was interesting as a way to think about what's going on.
So what's the answer?
And what do you think is going to happen? Because this is just like a prediction of what's going to happen in the future, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe more on the scenario 3 and 4.
Really?
Like,
why do you say that? So like scenario 3 is open models catch up. Open models catch up with frontier models to basically cross the good enough threshold. Which
I don't know if it's necessarily the models, but more like maybe systems. And I feel like people, it's not like the buzzword necessarily, but people, the top tier providers basically are building systems. They're building them into the models. So I think you can create systems using open source models that are more effective. But of course, there are 1,000 different scenarios. So,
and I guess this is like, I would probably say this kind of encompasses that, right? Which is like the product stack, everything you can do, all those components, everything around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I disagree. I don't think that's going to happen. I think
so you're more in the.
I don't think this scenario 1 where frontier models kind of reach escape velocity will occur because of distillation. I think because you can get access to these things, you can buy them, you can train smaller models and make them okay. I don't know, unless it's like very, very specific models, like, The specialization of models may make that true, like so AlphaFold, for example, whatever. I think it's more scenario two, where like the frontier model slope always stays ahead of the local or the open model kind of slope, but our requirement for intelligence will never go away. We're always going to be unfolding and exploring new requirements every day as this new capability kind of just comes online. So our good enough bar for intelligence will always expand. That will be a never-ending kind of expansionist domain, as it has been since the Industrial Revolution, right? Since we converted into intelligence work. It's like that we've never really reached an end point. Like, it's not like McKinsey ever goes, well, that's enough consulting.
Right.
You know, none of us ever go, well, I've read enough books. That's enough. That's enough for me.
I think I said
I
something
know
similar on this
some people might do
podcast, where
that,
it's
but
like,
those people are they're definitely not pushing the human race forward.
sure. Where did you say this is from?
It's a guy called Swix. He hosts the Latent Space podcast, and he's a investor, and now he works for Cognition Labs, the guys that make
Okay.
Devon.
Well,
I think
I will
it was
have
just a
to.
tweet he put out, and I thought it was kind of cool to discuss.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll have to read up, and I'll let you know if I change my mind.
Well, it's interesting, yeah. Interesting that we had different perspectives on it. But yeah, that's all I got for you this week, mate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I guess some of the newsworthy items that I had. The MCP registry, the official registry, is up. So if you're not a developer, it doesn't really matter to you, but it will eventually. So they've actually launched their official API. So now it's basically like, Tom, you're familiar with Pulse MCP. It's and Pulse MCP is going to switch their website to the official registry because they're heavily involved. But that will have some downstream effects. I think things like private registries for corporate use, marketplaces, built-in capabilities into like MCP clients for curated marketplaces and stuff like that. So something I'm excited about. I've been doing a lot of related work in the background, so we'll talk more about that. I guess I mentioned some of the things I stumbled upon. The Grok code CLI, I think, is super cool. It's like very basic.
What makes it different to the other ones? Because they've all got one now, right? Like Quinn's got a fork of the Gemini one. Gemini's got one. Grok's got one.
Yeah, the Grok one is meant to be a template to build on. It's super basic. These others are like, I think, like open code, you could tweak on that, but it's already pretty advanced and has a lot of features. So from what I see, the Grok one is really cool because it's highly customizable, and they have a desktop app, an Electron desktop app that I've been kind of working on as well. So I think those are pretty cool. Awesome contributions from Grok with a Q, by the way. Cloudflare had a AI week or developer week like 2 weeks ago, I think. And there were a whole bunch of announcements, but the key things that were most relevant to me, I was excited about. They released a MCP portal, which honestly, I'll have to go back and try it again, but it was pretty big letdown for me. So it's basically like you already have your MCP servers hosted somewhere else or in Cloudflare. You can secure them with Cloudflare Access, which is their security zero trust platform, but it doesn't work very well.
So you finally falling
Cloudflare,
out of love with Cloudflare?
no, I still advocate for Cloudflare, but on the right path. I think it's just a really early version.
Well, actually,
But it's cool. I mean, if it works better, and maybe it's just something I did wrong, but it's a super easy way to get some security in front of your MCP servers rather than, you don't necessarily have to build it in directly to the MCP server itself. The other thing that you might think this is cool, but they had released a product called AutoRag several months ago, and it's basically they templatize a R2 storage bucket for you, and then they pre-build all the workflows and vectorization that happens in the background. So all you have to do is basically one click create the AutoRag, and it's have a chatbot basically. So they put on a new feature where you can use AutoRag against your website, and then it by default launches an NL Web instance. I think you brought up NL Web at some point. You remember what
that's
that's
the
about?
Microsoft project. Yeah. Conversational interfaces to the web, basically making every website some sort of vectorized vector store, right?
Yeah. So basically in one click or a couple clicks, you can create a knowledge base of your website. And
that's cool.
By default, it's enabled with MCP and A2A. So it's a super, super quick and easy way to have whatever you want to do with those tools. If you want to serve it up publicly, you can. In fact, Tom, if you want, you can go to autorag.buildaipod.com. And that is our, I don't know what content, if it actually pulled in all the content, if it's working right now, but it is set up. So feel free to check it out.
I'm going to share it. I'll just show it off. This looks sick. I mean, you come into our impromptu thing with an actual demo. I just rocked up with a bunch of opinions.
Hey, if we're going to talk demos, this was the least time spent by far. It's so easy. I will say the AutoRag offering is a little bit limited. I think there's a 1 megabyte file size limitation, or maybe even more than that. So if you're dealing with large files or things that are not markdown, it's like markdown and text only, then you still have to build your own. But for just little quick things, I think it's super cool.
Okay, it's like a search. Yeah, okay, so it's like quick links. Got it.
Yep.
At least in that context. And I can list or summarize. Yeah, summarize mode. What was...
Yeah, and you can set it up so that it just does... so that it doesn't really use AI for the query. Or you can set it up where it does AI like regular RAG, and it rewrites your query to make it better. I can't remember how it's set up right now.
Yeah, it must just be like querying the components. Yeah, so it did some reasoning. Okay, cool. Not enough information. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's
again,
nice.
I don't know about the quality.
Yeah.
I pretty much...
you get the general gist. That's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Actually, while we're on this, did you see StatSig? OpenAI acquired StatSig.
I saw they were acquired. Yep.
I found this very confusing. Well, confusing in terms of the intention. And so is this revealing about OpenAI's intention in some way? So StatSig is a product, like I'd call it like a progressive delivery kind of product insights analytics tool for developers. I've used it primarily through Vercel because I have a good Vercel integration, right? But it does all this sort of stuff, analytics, logs, experiments, feature management, feature flags, session replays, that sort of stuff. So real, advanced or like modern product development kind of toolkit, if you will. So not really something that OpenAI would be interested in having unless they have intention to move into a more structured space around product generation, right? Because if they just needed this for OpenAI, they just buy something, like they just be a customer, right? There's a reason why they must have purchased this, and the reason must be related to their future intentions. And if you're going to buy a product like this, you'd be thinking about rolling it into some sort of platform, I would assume, and that platform would be related to people generating apps, right? So are they planning something a bit bigger to target Replit, which just closed a $250 million round, Vercel's V0, all these guys? Is OpenAI prepping for like a really big kind of vibe coding push? That would be my question based on looking at this.
I think that's obvious. Somewhat related. They put out a big announcement about their enhanced MCP support, and I don't have the right licensing to try it, but it could all be related. Maybe you'll have to show me how to use StatSig to begin with, because I've seen it, I read about. I don't use it personally.
They are doing some weird stuff like OpenAI, well, weird, like expansive stuff. Like, so they launched this like job board, like an AI powered jobs platform.
Yeah.
But then they're also releasing OpenAI like certifications as well. So you can be like certified as a, an AI kind of forward professional. That is a cool idea, I guess. I don't know why they would run their own, marketplace. They also announced that they're building their own chips, which has been in the works for a while, but they sort of formally announced the partnership with Broadcom for their own AI chips. Yeah. Lots to talk about. I really want to see what's going to happen.
Also, Oracle.
Yeah.
Did you see the news about the Oracle deal?
Yeah. That which has subsequently made Larry Ellison the richest person on earth. Which it's pretty hilarious. It's like, turns out Oracle was the best bet all along. You know how many people give Oracle shit? This is like, oh, fucking Oracle. Go and build a banking database, you dickhead.
I haven't seen anything definitive.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I haven't seen anything definitive about how exactly they're going to leverage Oracle. Like, is it just data center power, or?
I think it was just a data center tie-up, basically for compute resources, right?
Yeah.
As part of the Stargate commitment and all that sort of jazz, but it basically was just like preferred partner or preferred like joint partner. They're building their own data centers and doing a bunch of stuff. They're also training GPT-6 now, right, which they've acknowledged as well. So, yeah. Anyway, lots to talk about. Thanks for the demo. Do you want to leave it there? Or we've covered enough ground? Or you got anything else to
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I could talk about more MCP stuff, but I think we're good.
I think the main thing that I'm really motivated to do is test out music production, creative production stuff in the future, and see how we can like get like AI enabled creative outputs around like, some of these things integrated into these tools. Like, I'm really motivated to give that a crack. So next week, I think I'll come back and I'll give you a bit of demo of where I've gotten to.
Yeah, well, we have to collab now at some point, no matter how good or bad. But
you talk to my agent.
Yeah, well, I've used it actually. I can't say for real, or I've experimented with like generating music, and then I use software to break down into stems, which are the individual tracks. And now I think with like Suno, you can download the stems by default. But I think there's absolutely value in, like, I'm not a drummer. I try sometimes, but like stripping things down and using the drums or certain things to sample. There's unlimited possibilities there as you're getting started with that. How do you think you're gonna?
I'm really interested to see, like, so with any new tool, it's like easy to like step into it and go, all right, well, this makes what I've been doing, say, in electronic music production easier. For example, like I don't have to look for a sample that I want to use. I can imagine a sample and iterate on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, kind of like I was talking about with that Genie models from Google, it's like, what does music look like now that you can generate? You have like generative media as a music producer, as a creative, as someone who produces creative work. like what is possible now. Kind of like, when we were talking through the societies.io app, like that virtualized kind of audience app, that is something that just couldn't have existed before. And what I've been trying to think about is like, well, what can you do now which wasn't possible before these AI tools in the music domain? Yeah. When I come back and I just show you some samples, you'll know I failed. But yeah, I'm
No, I
interested
think
in
there's a
exploring
lot.
that idea. Yeah.
I look forward to that. And maybe I'll pull out. I showed you some experiment I started working on with multi agents and Ableton. So maybe we'll crack that back out. And
Yeah, that'd be cool. One thing that has been like bouncing around in my mind is this idea of like interactive or generative kind of agent-based kind of sound design that may be like audience interactive, like so it's actually generative, but it's based on an interaction pattern with the actual listener. So that could be cool.
there's a Waves plugin called like Abbey Road. It's modeled after the studio Abbey Road, and it's like what's that called? Spatial. So it uses AI and it's like simulates if you're walking around the studio. So they have some, and Waves also has Imagen, I think. Imagine, I don't know. There are a lot of AI plugins starting to come out. So it was already too much. We already had too many audio tools. Now it's even worse. So
Yeah, it might just be that I just give up and go back to analog and finally buy a couple of Moog synthesizers. That's also on the cards. So we'll see.
yeah.
All right, mate, let's wrap it there.
All right.
Great
Well,
to
good
chat.
talking with you, Tom. Have a good rest of your week.
Phase 2 of the build.
Season 2.
Season 2.